Today is March 18th, 2025. The Lee County Board of County Commissioners regular meeting will convene. If we could have the invocation by Javier Rodriguez from the New Life Assembly of God. Javier, you here? You Javier? Javier, is he here? No? I guess I'll wing it. Please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly God, please guide us today as we go through the deliberations for Lee County. Make sure that you give us the wisdom, the patience, and the solitude to do what's required for the people, understanding that democracy is always a tough word, and it's something we all try to do to make sure we listen and we attend to their needs. Also, if everyone could just keep all our military people and all the people that are out there trying to keep our place safe in their prayers. They go out every day without the thought of doing anything other than serving and protecting us. And in their name, we pray to Jesus. Amen. Amen. Flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. I have the first proclamation, and that is for Surveyors Week. Javier Monduro, come on up, sir. Is anyone else with your organization or just yourself?
That I'm aware of, just myself.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to read a proclamation, we'll take a photo, and then we'd like you to say a few words, if that's okay.
That's okay.
Thank you very much. Whereas surveying is an art and science of accurately determining the position points and distances between them and is often used to establish boundaries of ownership and government purposes. And whereas there are over 40,000 professional land surveyors in the United States, including approximately 91 who are licensed to practice surveying in Lee County. Whereas formal notable land surveyors George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, Meriwether Lewis, William Clark, Daniel Boone, and David Thoreau, among others. Whereas survey has been an essential element in the development of human environment since the beginning of record of history and has required the planning and execution of nearly every form of construction and land development, with most familiar modern uses of the fields of transportation, building, construction, communication, mapping, and the definition of legal boundaries and land ownership. And whereas, in order to accomplish their objectives, land surveys use elements of engineering, physics, math, law, history, and many other services now provided the use of sophisticated land surveying equipment and techniques, including satellite-borne remote sensing devices and automated position measuring, recording, and plotting. Now, therefore, it's resolved on the Board of County Commissioners March 16, 2025 to March 22nd, 2025 as Surveyors Week, signed by myself, dated March 18th, 2025. This is yours. We'll have a quick photo. And then if you say a few words, that'd be great. Thank you all.
Okay, I'll count us down for 2 photos. 3, 2, 1. And 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
To the podium.
Please feel go to the podium.
Say just a quick few words for everyone. Much thanks for the proclamation. Obviously, it's going to be shared with all the other surveyors. As I mentioned, it's going to be for a tri-county, so it's Lee County and all the other counties involved there. And as I always tell everyone, before any major development, before anything occurs, the first step is always a survey. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next presentation is by Commissioner Mullica. David.
So good morning. This is my official first proclamation, and I'm honored to do so. So I'll make this proclamation. Whereas each year the month of March is identified as Women's History Month and is a time when our nation reflects on the valuable contributions women make to our society, and whereas every girl deserves to be celebrated for her uniqueness and aspirations, and deserves to have her voice heard, her dreams supported, and her achievements acknowledged. And whereas PACE Center for Girls is instrumental in helping provide a better future through education, counseling, training, and advocacy. And whereas PACE Center for Girls recognizes the unique needs of young women and collaborates with Florida's Department of Children and Families, Department of Education, and Department of Juvenile Justice to empower girls to believe in themselves. And whereas this month provides an opportunity to honor the achievements of girls around the world, to highlight the importance of providing resources and opportunities for girls, and to renew our commitment to ensuring that all girls can thrive and succeed in every aspect of their lives. And whereas February 5th, 2025 marked the 17th anniversary of PACE Center for Girls providing services in Lee County, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Lee County, Florida does hereby proclaim the month of March as Believing in Girls Month, encouraging all communities, organizations, and individuals to reflect on the importance of believing in the power and potential of girls, duly executed this 18th day of March by our Chair, Ruane. March 18th. Thank you.
Thank you.
David, give him the
Oh, thank God, someone's dressing us up. Absolutely. Ladies,
Somebody want to take the part?
Good morning, we'll take a couple, 3, 2, 1, and 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
thanks for making us look good. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is anybody going to say a few words?
Okay, Noelle Casagrande. I am the PACE Board Chair, also the PIO for the City of Fort Myers. I am honored to be part of this mission and PACE. I've been involved for over 10 years. We're very grateful that this is your first proclamation. Thanks for making a statement along with us.
Great way to start.
And yeah, if you are not familiar with PACE Center for Girls, please visit pacecenter.org. We have tons of different programming, events coming up. We serve girls 11 to 17. We have an incredible board and staff. They're actually on spring break right now, otherwise we'd have more. But just thank you for this recognition, this honor, and anytime anyone would like to visit the PACE Center, please swing by and get to know the girls. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for all you do. The third and final proclamation is for American Red Cross, and that's Commissioner Greenwell.
Thank you, Chairman. It's Jill Palmer, Executive Director of American Red Cross South Florida Region, and Dennis Sanders, Community Volunteer Leader. So thank you all for being here. Thank you. So I'll read the proclamation. Whereas we celebrate American Red Cross Month by recognizing the compassionate acts of people in Lee County by renewing the commitment to lend a helping hand to our neighbors in need, and whereas since Clara Barton founded the American Red Cross more than 140 years ago, and 108 years ago in South Florida, generations after generations have stepped up to deliver relief and care across our community, bringing out the best of humanity in times of crisis. And whereas volunteers advancing the noble mission who give their time remain unwavering in their commitment to prevent and alleviate human suffering human suffering in the face of today's emergencies. And whereas whether it is delivering shelter, food, and comfort during a disaster, supporting service members, veterans, and their families, saving lives with first aid, CPR, AED, and other skills, are delivering international aid and reconnecting loved ones separated by global crisis, volunteers selflessly answer the call to help. And whereas we applaud the American Red Cross mission to prevent, alleviate human suffering in the face of emergencies. And our community depends on the American Red Cross, which relies on volunteers and generosity of the public to perform its mission. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners, Lee County, Florida, does hereby designate March the 18th American Red Cross Month. Whereas signed and duly signed by Chairman Kevin Moraine. So thank y'all. Come on up for a photo. Have a photo.
Good morning. We'll take a couple of photos. 3, 2, 1. And 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for what you do. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Commissioners, thank you so much for recognizing March as Red Cross Month. It's a privilege today to be here alongside of one of my amazing volunteers, Dennis Sanders, who's a prime example of the 90% volunteer-driven workforce that we have within our organization. The Red Cross is here in our local community, and it truly is a community asset. Every day, local volunteers and donors deliver the mission, ensuring that we are there for those during their greatest need. When emergency strikes, our community rallies together to care for those during this greatest time. During this time of continuous response with back-to-back devastating disasters and less time in between for recovery, there has never been a greater time for the need for additional volunteers for our organization and our community. We ask the community to step forward to help those giving of their time and their talent. We invite everybody to turn their compassion into action by volunteering, donating, or taking a life-saving course. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. We'll now move on to the recap. First item is C11. We're going to defer that for additional assessment. Second item is going to be approved piggyback on a contract, and the third item that's on here is to execute CBGR funding agreement and revise the subordination. Mr. Attorney, you need a motion on that?
Yes, sir.
Move the item.
Second. Have a motion, a second, for these items on the recap. Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. I'll bring it back up to the dais. Any other conversation? Seeing none, anyone opposed? Seeing none, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the consent agenda. Anyone would like to pull anything? Commissioner Pendergrass?
No items.
Commissioner Malika?
No items.
No,
I don't have any items either.
Move the balance.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Pendergrass, a second by Commissioner Greenwell. Any public comment on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. I'll bring it back up here to the dais. Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Any objections? Seeing none, motion carries unanimously. We'll now move on to the public hearing.
Administrative.
Mr. Chair?
Oh, I passed, sorry, my bad. Hang on, my bad, I moved too quickly. County manager, go to administrative. I don't need to jump too fast, but
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
no problem, thank you.
This item is to approve fiscal year 24-25 strategic planning direction. At your February 25th or 20th meeting, strategic planning workshop, you discussed a number of topics. Those are as follows. Bring back cost estimate timeframe for a study to determine the potential for a sheriff's municipal services taxing unit. And then we would come back on whether we would proceed with going into looking at that as well. The next would to be bring back, change the procurement ordinance, reducing major disaster emergency purchases to 30 days and requiring the Board of County Commissioners to approve all emergency purchases after 30 days. Schedule a future board workshop on hurricane debris, procurement, policy, and implementation. We also, the board also asked to hold the following workshops this following year. Civic Center funding options, further streamlining of permitting, financing for board-identified projects or project bundles, user fees, Conservation 2020, and a procurement workshop as well.
Thank you, sir. What's the board's pleasure?
I move the items. This, obviously, I'm going to be concerned about the future costs for the MSTU process with the sheriff. I don't see, we're not identified a problem yet. Why to change that? I can't see spending money for that, but we'll talk about that study cost once we get it, though, because as right now, we still don't know what the issue is, but there's no identified problem yet, so I'm not sure what we're trying to fix there, but I move the agenda item forward.
Just to clarify, you mentioned the procurement ordinance as a whole.
Correct.
We're going to review that whole thing as we talked about yesterday, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
We added that as G. That was not on the, thank you, Commissioner. We added that as item G, the procurement ordinance in general. It was not added into the blue sheet, and I wanted to make sure that that was included.
But it was part of our discussion, so thank you for that.
Just to follow up, County Manager, you have an idea of the timeline or time frame we would have the costs associated with the MSTBU?
We would hope to come back to you, I would assume in a month. Richard?
Mr. Chairman, yes, we can certainly put some feelers out into the community. I would suggest to you, however, based on other studies that have been conducted, you can anticipate a cost of anywhere between $60,000 and $100,000 based on the extent of the study. And given that we have the number of municipalities involved here in Lee County that we do, the study would take anywhere, I would anticipate, between 6 to 8 months after the firm was procured.
Okay. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you, sir.
Motion maker, you still okay with your motion?
Yes.
Okay. Motion on the floor?
I'll second.
Well, we have discussion.
Huh?
Was there discussion or?
Yeah,
Second for discussion?
oh,
Second for discussion or second?
for discussion.
Okay, great.
All right, so just to understand, we're approving, just so I understand, we're approving this study for $60,000 to $100,000. Is that what the motion is for?
No, sir.
No.
No, right now, you're just asking us to investigate and bring back the potential costs to you?
Cost to us.
Correct, and then you will give us direction whether to move forward or not.
Okay.
That's why in my motion, I was trying to be clear, make sure I was clear that I would not support probably unless we identified a problem to warrant that cost to do a study. As of right now, I would not support it unless we would be able to identify what we're trying to fix. So that's why I was talking a little bit before I made the motion that this was not going to incur any costs. It's just,
Correct.
we'll bring it back and see what the cost could be, and also the interactions with the 6 cities.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's it? That's
Okay.
it.
Motion is second. Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. I'll bring it back up to the dais. Any other discussion? Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next item, County Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the award of contract for Colonial Boulevard at Summerlin Road and McGregor Boulevard intersection improvements. I'd like to ask Mr. Rob Price to present the item.
Morning, Commissioners. Rob Price with DOT. This item awards a contract to OHLA, Inc. for $1.3 million to perform intersection improvements along Colonial Boulevard from Summerlin Road to McGregor Boulevard. This project is the board's 8th ranked priority in Tier 1 of the transportation tiers. The project includes repurposing the northbound approach of Summerlin Road to allow left turns out of 3 northbound lanes. It also includes closure of a left end from Colonial to the Royal Palm Square and some pedestrian-related improvements at McGregor Boulevard. Construction is expected to begin in April with completion by this winter. I am available if you do have any questions on the project.
Any commission questions for Rob?
Move
Can
the
you just
item.
walk us through how the traffic flow will improve with this?
Yeah, so the biggest improvement, I would say, for traffic flow is going to be taking the northbound through lane and restriping it as a through left lane. There'll be some signal head improvements, but now you'll be able to turn left off of Summerlin onto Colonial headed towards Cape Coral or McGregor in 3 lanes instead of 2.
Oh, that's a big improvement. Thank you.
Yep.
I move the item.
I'll second it. Motion is second. I do have a card, Joyce Campana, for Colonial Boulevard.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm here to talk about this project because I live right near there, and I am aware how far traffic backs up on Summerlin to turn left onto Colonial or north over the bridge. It will back up all the way to Boy Scout. I'm not sure that adding a 3rd turn lane is going to help the situation because once you go left or north on, west on Colonial to go over the bridge, you have 2 lanes going over the bridge. I understand not all lanes might be going over the bridge, some might be going towards the right to go on McGregor, but the majority, I'll bet you money, are gonna go over that bridge. You're gonna have 3 lanes mushing down into 2. And I think that might make the situation worse in terms of accidents. It'd be like taking a big sewer pipe, 6-inch pipe, and trying to have it flow into a 2-inch pipe. There's gonna be some problems along the way with doing that. I'm sure there'll be more accidents doing that. The other question I have is, does this project take into account the Royal Palms development, which anticipates another 20,000 cars a day exiting onto Royal Palm Square Boulevard, which is just, I don't know, south of Colonial. So those 20,000 cars are gonna either go out on McGregor or out on Summerlin. One way or the other, east or west. And I sure hate to see this done and then in another 2 years or whatever, have to tear it all up again for that project. The other area of concern, I'm not sure what sort of improvements will be made to the traffic light or signal at McGregor and Colonial. I know the left turn at that light is the longest light in the world. I think it's about 5 minutes. But I'd be curious to see the price broken out. I hope the 1.3 million isn't for the traffic light. Is that just a matter of reprogramming? It was not clear in the agenda documents, at least it wasn't to me. So those are my concerns about traffic. I'm not sure that 3 lanes is gonna help once you get it out onto Colonial, which is just absolutely insane when they're going through there at 45 miles an hour. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment, bring it back up to the dais. Any other discussion?
Maybe we can have Rob address some of the concerns that were brought up real
Sure.
quick, and, because I know I asked some of the questions and briefings in the past, and there's an answer to some of those questions that were brought up about the traffic flow, the 3 lanes and 2 lanes. Rob, can you identify that?
You're talking about she was questioning the left turn, the 3 lanes into 2 lanes
Yes.
going over to Cape Coral.
Right.
There's gonna be some signage incorporated to urge people that are destined for McGregor to use the outside left turn lane. Obviously, there will be some commingling of traffic where people will use the 3rd lane and then try to merge over. We have that situation in many areas throughout the county, and we don't find it to be a safety hazard. This is an interim improvement. As the board is aware, as a part of our midpoint project, we do include a left turn flyover, which we think is the ultimate fix at that location. So we're trying to make the most out of the current footprint of the roadway to make the roads more efficient.
And also, the work being done, the cost is also incurred a lot of concrete work and a lot of repaving work too, and curbing, correct?
Yeah, there's concrete work, there's some signal work at the Summerlin intersection, there's some sidewalk connections that we're making at the McGregor intersection. They're mostly ADA improvements associated with that location. The left into Royal Palm Square is being eliminated, which has been a chronic safety issue for the county. And the city, we've been coordinating with the city, who is working with the developer of Royal Palm Square to address the traffic that's going to be generated by that site in their redevelopment plans.
It's the left end right there in front of McDonald's, in front of the Royal Palm Square, that if you're going westbound
Correct.
now, that's going to be eliminated. That's
Correct.
always been a traffic issue.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Rob? We have a motion on the floor in a second. Any other discussion?
I'm glad to see any improvements we can make to that intersection. It's been difficult since
So
day
we'll get the
one.
flyover done.
Anything we can do to
Absolutely.
step in the right direction, thank you.
Seeing no other discussion, anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. There's item number 38.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the award of contract for Buckingham and Gunnery Roundabout Construction. I'd like to ask Mr. Price to present the item.
Morning again, Rob Price with DOT. This item awards a contract to V&H Construction in the amount of $4.8 million.
for the construction of a new roundabout at the intersection of Gunnery Road and Buckingham Road. The Metropolitan Planning Organization conducted a roundabout feasibility study at 18 intersections within Lee County, and this intersection ranked number 2 in that study. The county has received $4.6 million in federal funding to construct the roundabout. Construction is expected to begin in April, and the project will take a year to complete. I am here if you have any questions.
Any questions for Rob?
I'd be happy with this item. We've been talking about this for many, many years. I'm glad to see it finally come forward. There's been a lot of controversy about it, but it's, that intersection definitely needs improvements, and as traffic increases out in East Lee County. So another great traffic improvement, so thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Rob. I'll second it.
What was the number one, if this was number 2?
The number 1 was the intersection of Periwinkle Way on Sanibel.
So, and just since that was brought up, when I was mayor, the citizens didn't want to move forward with that initiative.
I understand that. You said number 2, I just wanted to know what number 1 was.
I'm still surprised they don't want that out there. Every time I hear that, I'm just amazed that they don't want that there.
Oh,
Thank you.
appreciate it. Any other discussion? Seeing none, anyone opposed? Seeing none, motion carries unanimously. Now we'll move on to the public hearing. Keep me on board, gentlemen.
Doing great.
Good morning, Commissioners. Michael Jenkins, from County Attorney's Office. I have your one and only public hearing for this morning. This is the first of 2 public hearings to adopt amendments to the development agreement for the Kingston project. The proposed changes will revise the timing for payment of sewer and water connection fees, and that's the extent of it. Any questions?
Any questions,
I'm here.
Mr. Jacobs? I'll move the item.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Ruane, second by Commissioner Greenwell. Any public comment? Don't see any public comment. I'll close public comment. Bring it back up to the desk. Any other discussion? Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Carry-ons and carryovers. Do we have any? I don't believe we have any. Wonderful. Commissioner items. Mr. Pendergrass.
Yes, thank you, and sorry to my colleagues for such a late notice on this, Commissioner. I am so sorry about bringing this up at the last minute, but if there's an issue, I'll be happy to bring it up in 2 weeks, but I think it's really important we address this today. So I saw last night the city of Fort Myers held a council meeting, and they had on their agenda to have their police officers attend training to work with ICE agents for the federal government. Every day, we all know law enforcement comes across illegal immigrants throughout their daily work. I did many years in my law enforcement career, and it's just unfortunate scene. You cannot know when you're going to come across someone that's committed a crime by being an illegal alien. So anyway, the city of Fort Myers voted last night 3-3 not to support their officers being trained how to interact and work with ICE agents. I found it kind of hard to understand why they would not want to support their employees, the city of Fort Myers police officers, being trained to how to when they come in contact with someone. And all they basically do is training them to go out and say, if you come across somebody, they contact an ICE certified agent would come in and interact with that prisoner or a victim, because they just recently had a homicide where the body was dismembered and that person, crime was committed by illegal alien. So this really is going to continue to happen. They're also going, the mayor pointed out to them in the vote that, and the city attorney pointed out, they will lose federal funding. So they're looking at losing their CBTG funding for hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars if they do not do this. The city of Marco voted yesterday unanimous to support their police officers being trained. So my ask today is for our board to send a letter to the Lee County Sheriff's Department and the Port Authority Police Chief saying we support their men and women being trained to work with ICE agents. We're not doing anything else other than saying they should be educated and trained how to work within in that arena, so if they come in contact with illegal aliens, as they will do in the day-to-day contact. Right now, I think we have 127 inmates in our Lee County jail across the street that are waiting to be deported. So they are coming in contact with them every day. I think it's really important that we send a message that the Sheriff's Department and the Port Authority Police, we support them being trained to do their job. So I'm asking the staff to prepare a letter and the chairman sign it to the Sheriff Marcino and the Port Authority Police Chief that we support the training.
And that's your motion?
Yes.
I will second that. Motion is second. Any public comment on that item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back up to the dais. Any other discussion?
Well, thank you for bringing it to our attention. We support.
I was just surprised that they even had that discussion. I thought the chief feels good to do the action upon itself, and based upon counsel from their attorney and the city and the mayor, that, you know, they had to take this item up before the council, and surprising that 3 of the members did not support that. They did not support them continuing this training, that they were told by the city attorney they could lose their funding, they could even lose their elected seats for doing this, but that's their choice. So we're going to support our law enforcement here in Lee County, and it's unfortunate this is a product of single-member districts in the city of Mars, nonpartisan races. This is what happens in a city and within Lee County of Florida. So, thank you.
Motion is second. Any other discussion? Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I have 2 items. The first one is a community-assisted support legislative letter of support. We would be sending it to Governor DeSantis. It's basically accept this letter of support for CASL permanent support for affordable housing. They've been around since 1998, provided much need to affordable and housing for veterans with disabilities, mental disability issues, and many other development issues. The letter is just obviously supporting the legislative body with the budget request they've put in. That's a letter.
Is it it's a motion for the letter?
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Rain, second by Commissioner Greenwell. Any discussion? I'm sorry, any public comment? See none, any discussion? Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. Next item is Commissioner Sandelli was part of the Affordable Housing Committee, and there was a vacancy, and affordable housing has been something near and dear to my heart, and I certainly was volunteering myself unless there's a discussion to have someone else do this.
All yours.
The motion is that I get appointed to the Affordable Housing Committee. I appreciate the gesture. That's my motion.
A second.
Second by Commissioner Greenwell. Any public comments? See none, I'll bring it back up to the dais. Any other discussion? Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Those are my 2 items. Commissioner Mulliker. Any commissioner items, not appointments?
No items.
Okay. Now we'll go to commissioner appointments. Commissioner Pendergrass.
I have none today.
I'll go to Commissioner Mulliker. I'm going to find mine.
I'll give you a mix. I have a bunch here today.
So do I.
So my first reappointment is for Marianne Briggs to be reappointed to the Affordable Housing Committee.
Second. Motion is second. Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Bring it back up here. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Commissioner Greenwell.
He's got a bunch, so.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
you
sorry.
want to just read them all and then
Yeah.
do one motion?
Yeah, we'll
Is that
do
okay?
it.
Do you want to read each committee and whichever? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, all right, the next 3 are on the Anchorage Way Intercoastal Operation and Maintenance Committee, which is Brian Burgess, Roy Hendry, Mark Lindsay. That's those 3 on that committee. Then my Kevin Schimpf to the Waterways Committee, Greg Kovacs to the Heritage Farms, and Larry Martin also to Heritage Farms. That's my entire slate.
I'll second. Motion is second. Any public comment? See none, I'll close public comment. Bring it back up to the dais. Any other discussion? Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Commissioner Greenwell.
I have none.
I do have a bunch, and I'll read them all for it makes life. The first one is to Waterways. It's Thomas Tomich. The next 4 are the Boca Grande Historical Preservation Board, Jerry Egerton, Dennis Molin, Paul Eddy, and Barbara Wickwire. And then the last 2 are for the Cherry Blueberry Improvement Unit is Ronald Good and Dale Reinhardt.
I'll second.
A motion and a second on the floor. Any public comment? Seeing none, bring it back up to the dais. Any other discussion? Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. County manager items.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have no items today.
County attorney.
Nothing further, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I have cards. First one is Robert Johnson on flood barrier for Lee County.
Thank you. My name's Robert Johnson. I live on the Caloosahatchee River in Olga, just east of Fort Myers Shores. My father built our home in 1974, and I retired here in Lake County in 2004. Up until the fall of 2022, we were never flooded and rarely had water over our seawall. So this is a proposal for a flood barrier across the Caloosahatchee River somewhere in the Iona area. In the fall of 2022, Hurricane Ian sent a surge up the Caloosahatchee River, flooding many homes near the river in Cape Coral, Fort Myers Shores, and Olga, including my home. The water was about 3 feet higher than it had ever been. We were told Hurricane Ian was a once-in-a-lifetime storm. The path, the strength, the size, the slow speed were a perfect storm to send such a high storm surge. Just 2 years later, 2 more storms, Helene and Milton, sent storm surges higher than we had seen in 50 years, except for Ian. Fortunately, I had installed flood barriers, which enabled me to keep my home dry. During a recent river cruise in Europe, I discovered their rivers, the Rhine, the Danube, and others, had flooded for years, and many countries and cities had installed flood barriers or taken measures to reduce flooding impact. Holland and Belgium take extreme measures to avoid flooding, as do New Orleans. I'd ask the Lee County Commissioners to work with the Corps of Engineers to find a suitable location near the mouth of our river to build some type of flood barrier with gates that can be closed or raised when we are threatened by storm surge. We have a unique opportunity compared with Charlotte Harbor or Tampa Bay to prevent damage to much of Lee County, since all the surge came up our river, which is fairly narrow at the Cape Coral Bridge and in the Iona area. Thousands of homes in all of the city of Fort Myers could be protected by such a barrier, and maybe it should become part of our local mitigation strategy. I believe this could be a practical solution to this new surge flooding phenomena, which clearly was not a one-time event. Thank you for your attention and consideration.
Thank you. Next item is Daniel Becker.
This is for you and for them. Good morning. My name is Daniel Becker. I'm a resident of District 2. The people who spoke before and after me shows that the board's commitment and understanding that citizens' input can enhance the quality and effectiveness of public service delivery and policy decisions. I thank you for that. At the February 4th, 2025 Lee Board of County Commissioner meeting, under public presentation of matters by citizens, a Lee County resident suggested modifying workshops to allow public comment and citizen engagement instead of waiting days or weeks to comment at the next board meeting. Quoting from the recording of that meeting, the board chairman responded by saying, "Government is not a democracy." And commissioners respond to groups, not individual citizens. Well, first, unless last night it was rescinded by a tweet, the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution does make government a democracy. And second, what is a group? 2 people, 10 people, 50 people? I come to you with a group represented by 60 signatures, which I provided a copy to the clerk, petitioning the government represented by you 5 gentlemen to provide people with the opportunity to speak at workshops, to share their perspectives, and to contribute to the decision-making process affecting our lives and our community's future. Make the naysayers wrong who say the Lee County Board of County Commissioners don't want input and don't listen. Change your stance on allowing citizens input at workshops, thus showing your commitment to open and transparent government. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Mary O'Bannon. I'm sorry?
Would it be possible to have another speaker ahead of me?
Sure. Kimberly Whipple.
I would make the same request.
Sorry?
I would make the same request.
Jay Whipple.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Jay Whipple. I live at 4073 Shore Lane on Boca Grande, Florida. Happy St. Patty's Day, by the way. Unfortunately, the lack of response by the county continues to compound the parking pressure on Gilchrist Avenue. Beach access roads need to be cleared, and the traffic cones need to be removed. Signage is desperately needed to help visitors understand where they can park and where they can't park. In addition, the public still does not have access to the state park at the end of the island. That is our biggest and most beautiful beach. It's inaccessible and absolutely empty on a Saturday and Sunday. It's just a travesty. My understanding is this morning you will have received a PDF in email that documents many of the Gilchrist resident abuses and infringements on public access. This helps makes the case for the need for a complete parking study. This is the second request. We on Boca Grande need the ability to craft solutions locally. Again, we would like your support for creating an advisory panel similar to the one on Captiva Island to help formulate a more balanced perspective and approach to our unique challenges on Boca Grande. Ultimately, you as commissioners will have to balance, as Commissioner Romaine has made clear, the rights of each of these different parties that are involved. On the one hand, you will have to decide whether enriching the wealth of the 24 super wealthy residents of Gilchrist by allowing the private annexation of public property and rights, or, on the other hand, continuing the existing rights of the less fortunate to have reasonable access to the natural beauty of the Boca Grande beaches. Thank you.
Next speaker is Michael Witt.
Good morning, Commissioners. Michael Witt with Hahn Lozier and Parks. I represent St. Andrew's Episcopal Church on Boca Grande, as well as the Lighthouse United Methodist Church on Boca Grande. Why am I here this morning? Good question. Speaking on public comment, because we were told 2 weeks ago that the proposed ordinance was going to be an agenda item and then was going to be potentially voted for first reading. We showed up a couple weeks ago. We had the discussion. You took public comment on why my clients thought that was a very bad idea because it was not supported at all by any facts. I would commend to you to maybe have conversations with your county manager, county staff, the county attorney's office, and say, there's a proposed ordinance that's been prepared by the county attorney's office. What are the relevant facts? What relevant data backs that up? To our understanding, there's really nothing that backs that up, other than some public statements that have been made to, I believe, Commissioner Ruane, who's been out and visited and taken some public input. But as we said a couple of weeks ago, and you just heard from Mr. Whipple, there's no parking study. And there needs to be a parking study done to try to solve the problems of the parking pressures on Boca Grande, in particular on the Gilchrist Avenue portion of the island. And both St. Andrews and Lighthouse are on Gilchrist Avenue. And they serve that community 7 days a week, not just on Sundays, not just during worship hours, but since the storms in particular, they're hosting many, many nonprofits, and they need the parking. There's no parking around. There's 0 parking space at Lighthouse, for example, none, other than 3 handicap parking spaces in the back of the church. It's all street parking. So you have hundreds of parking spaces that are still offline from the storms, hundreds. We don't know when they're going to come back online. So that leaves Gilchrist. We have the parking spaces open there in the median. Some comments were made, and we were very, very appreciative of that, about possibly having a county commission meeting out on Boca Grande or possibly a workshop out on Boca Grande. We would welcome that. My clients want to make that very, very clear to you. We would welcome that. But I put a question to you all. we want to make sure that the cart is not before the horse. So which is the cart and which is the horse? So do we have a workshop or a commission meeting out there to take input from the public and the stakeholders there without having a parking study done? Or do you all come out so you can better understand the interest of the varied stakeholders in Boca Grande, understand what the problems are, and then consider possible next steps, including a parking study?
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Commissioner.
Kimberly and Mary ready, or?
Good morning, everyone. I am here to talk briefly just about what the attorney was mentioning. I was president of the, and I'll only say this once, I was president of the parking panel for 7 years. We were first appointed by Commissioner Manning, and then when Commissioner Manning stepped down, and we made great progress with Commissioner Manning. He put together a group, he asked us to serve, we served. And the parking panel before us were very dysfunctional. So when we came in, the extra 5, we came in and we immediately set up a situation where we went by Robert's Rules of Orders. We had minutes, we selected officers, and then we had our meetings, and the way we decided on how we would approach the commissioners would be majority ruled. And so some of us won, sometimes some of us lost, but we all still worked cohesively as a committee. When Commissioner Wayne came on, he made, at times, he was frustrated with us, and at times made several comments that he had inherited us and he did not know what to do with us because we weren't under sunshine, we weren't this, we weren't like a Lee County Advisory Panel. On our panel, we had representation from homeowners on the beach, people that lived on the beach streets, people that owned businesses, people that lived in different sections of Gasparilla Island. And so, we basically were a community panel. We represented, if something needed done, people came to us. So when we realized for the first time that we weren't, quote, an official panel, and Commissioner Wayne said, I don't know what to do with you, we said we would be happy to be an official panel. We'd like to be recognized as an advisory panel. And we were asked, just give us the paperwork, we'll do what we need to do. We asked that 3 different times. We've never received any paperwork. So that's basically all I want to say is that we also asked 3 different times in 3 years for a parking study, and it was never done. Thank you, gentlemen.
Kimberly Whipple, you ready to speak yet?
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Kimberly Whipple, and I am the Senior Warden of St. Andrew's Episcopal Church on Boca Grande.
You raise your voice? I can't hear you. Sorry.
I am the Senior Warden at St. Andrew's Boca Grande. I am also a resident of Boca Grande and have been for 22 years. First, I want to thank you very much for your time, for listening, for your respect and your ability to hear all sides here. We appreciate that very much. As you've heard from Mr. Witt, we would ask that we have an opportunity to have some facts determined, to do some studies, to understand exactly what the problem is. Right now, it feels like there is a solution that's being presented to us without even knowing exactly how big or what is defined as the problem that is trying to be solved. Without fully understanding what the parking situation is on this island by someone who is, that is an unbiased and objective company or professional to bring those facts forward to be considered. rather than simply the staff here or the commissioners hearing opinions by those of us who live on Boca Grande, or taking separate pictures, or having different points of view. That's all fine and well, but without facts and truly understanding what's going on, it's very difficult to understand what the problem is. And without understanding what the problem is, it's very difficult to look at a possible solution and say whether or not it would work. Simply transporting a solution or a possible mechanism that was done on a different barrier island and transport it to Boca Grande, which is completely unique and has its own issues and its own problems, is not a solution for us. It needs to be something where all the stakeholders are taken into consideration, a panel is put together that can give that, and facts are determined. And we would appreciate that. We would love to have you hear us, to hear all the stakeholders, to have some facts rather than simply opinions. So we would welcome you to come out and hear it, and we please ask that you would consider a parking study or other facts be put into place and determined before we look and possibly see what is going to solve this. I mean, what other solutions have been considered besides the one that's being proposed? We don't know. What else has been tried? We don't know. All we know is that something that was done somewhere else is going to be put on our island, or at least suggested that it be put on our island. And that is not fair to those of us who live there, work there, have businesses there, and
Thank you for your
we need
time.
our own solution. So thank you very much.
Anyone else to speak? Come on up, sir.
Thank you. My name is Louis Sarkis. I live on Railroad Avenue, right in the heart of Boca Grande. I believe I speak for most of my fellow residents who live on public streets in our little town. I want to again stress our strong support for the passage of a structured parking plan. The fragile environment of Boca Grande is at risk of being overwhelmed. And Boca Grande is a sensitive ecological area. The unfettered influx of vehicles and visitors has placed increasing pressure on our limited infrastructure. It threatens our environmental resources, and it threatens our wildlife habitats. Our residential areas don't have the infrastructure nor the facilities to deal with being overrun and overwhelmed. The explosion of development in nearby Charlotte County and the resulting crush of visitors has created a situation where people don't feel like we have the quiet enjoyment of our neighborhoods. The result has been a host of public safety issues and public health issues. Without a thoughtful parking plan, we risk further degrading of our roads, our beaches, and our habitats. I have to say it's distressing to hear a couple of our local churches leading the charge to hire lawyers and obstruct a common sense plan that would accommodate the needs of those very churches. Very sadly, my own former church is among them. Many of those advocates don't live in the residential areas of Boca Grande, and in some cases don't even live in Lee County. Our community has clamored for such a plan for years, and my best sense is that most of these very church congregants support such a plan. They too have been overrun. There's a reason I live in Boca Grande, and that's to enjoy the peaceful enjoyment of our beautiful community. It's the very same reason I choose not to live in Coney Island. Unfortunately, some days the two are hard to distinguish. So I urge you, commissioners, please act as soon as possible. It is time. Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you. Next speaker. Come on up, Mr. Sullivan.
Well, I was hoping not to speak today, so I don't have prepared notes. I did jot down a couple points. Firstly, I'll say Louis Sarkis, who just spoke, is the first person to speak to this topic today who actually lives on a Lee County-owned street on Gasparilla Island. The people who live on these streets know full well that what's being experienced this year is horrible, but what was experienced last year at the same time was also horrible. This is not purely a function of Englewood Beach or our state park being shut down. The growth of Charlotte County within striking distance of our island far exceeds the capacity of the island to satisfy everybody who wants to go to the beach without destroying the island itself. There was questions raised about studies. Asking for studies is a very common tactic to gum up the works of government and prevent practical solutions, common sense solutions that are right in front of us. There have been studies done for years. As early as 1989, there was a traffic study done on Boca Grande that was used as part of the presentation of facts to the state government in the passing of the Gasparilla Act. That act limited the private property rights of landowners on Boca Grande in order to preserve the island. It limited heights, it limited densities, it limited the way property could be used. That study that I'm referring to gave a total capacity of the key roads on the island. And that was used, based on the study, to limit the amount of housing units that should be on the island. You can look at bridge traffic numbers from last spring, and you'll see many days where people coming from over the bridge nearly use up all the capacity that was originally intended for people who own property on the island and already limited their property rights. So I urge you, there is available data. Many of you, I know, have reviewed it and understand the facts. We need action now. Last June, when you heard from people who actually live on Lee County streets, this commission voted unanimously to move forward with a solution. I urge you to do just that.
Any other public? Neil?
Yes, sir. Good morning. For the record, Neil Montgomery. I represent some of the property owners and businesses on Boca Grande. And unfortunately, studies and workshops are sometimes the places where good ideas go to die. And in the interim, the residents and businesses are impacted by a deluge of too many people in too small a space. And how can that be a problem? It can be a problem because there's not enough public safety people to take care of the folks on the island. So rather than wait for a study, let's move forward with an ordinance. And all the people who have different and varied opinions have the right and ability to show up and speak. But in the interim, you need to move forward with a plan that makes it safe and orderly, because what we can't have is the public safety issue where you have too many people and there's congestion and houses and businesses' driveways are blocked and you can't get the public safety people to the resident or to the business to address the problem. And so this has been a problem since Commissioner Manning was on the board, and the folks have complained since that time. And the board has taken steps in other barrier islands to solve the problem. In 2023, this board adopted a parking and a golf cart ordinance for Captiva. So this is not out of the ordinary for what you've done on other barrier islands and in other situations. And even in Fort Myers, there are restrictions on how long you can park. We used to have zip zones and a lot more freedom than we do now, but it didn't work. So they changed the system to a 2-hour system so that the businesses can have turnover in the parking, and you can meet the needs of the businesses and you can meet the needs of the residents. So I would urge you to move forward. Let this see the light of day. Let's not send this to a study and a workshop where it languishes and somebody, perish the thought, can't get access to the EMS when they need it. Let's move forward now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that'd like to speak on Boca parking?
Good morning, Commissioners. Gary Cross, Boca Grande Chamber Executive Director.
Hope you guys are doing well this morning. I just want to speak briefly on the parking issue that's been brought up. Transparency is really what the business district is looking for. It seems that there hasn't really been much like given out so that they can understand what exactly that this ordinance will bring. I think that community needs to come in and say what they need to say and speak into this. And if we could all get together and have that meeting, I think that'd be very helpful and ease some minds on what is happening with this. So if we can set up a time where the commissioners come and speak with the community and say, hey, this is what they are, and they're able to speak back and say, this is our concerns, and maybe find a level ground for this. Thank you.
Any other speakers on BoCC? I'll refrain my comments just to correct things for the record after the public comments. Donalyn Moon? Donalyn Moon? You here? Billy Joe Schottmeyer?
Good morning. I'd like to speak on items 13 and 14. I noticed some wording here that I've used for a long time. Funds over time would go back into future endeavors for housing or whatever. And I propose that when I ask for funding to create something. Well and good, we're building apartments and that. But the thing is, you got so many homeless on the street in the different areas, Bonita, Fort Myers, different places, to have some place like a hostel setting that's bringing in the revenue to do this with, going into the fund, okay? Like Newman's Own, you know, people are paid, there's like a clerk to check people in, but what people pay goes into a fund to aid with this housing crisis, okay? You got a couple buildings in Fort Myers, you got them scattered throughout different places. My thing would be probably Heritage Park. It was a convalescent place for rehab. I know the price tag would be pricey, but what's more important, people's lives. So it's a few $1 million. I mean, there's houses on Sanibel that are $10 million, you know? Let's work together as a community for the needs of all the people. And then the revenue is going in there. So it's a win-win for everybody. Bringing in revenue for the county, the city, and also the nonprofits. I thank you for your time, and I was hoping to see Mr. Hammond. I hope everything's okay. I'll leave some stuff with his aide downstairs, moving along on the Suncoast property to try to develop that to better the community. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Come on up.
Good morning. Thank you for your time. My name is Mark O'Neill. I'm a co-owner of a restaurant on the south end of BoCC Grand. We've seen a lot of this impact of the parking issues. A restaurant's South Beach Bar and Grill. It's closest to the state park that's closed, and we're experiencing impact on our business because the congestion of parking that is basically going to the south end parking that is open. We feel that there's a need to do a study or come visit this. Our businesses are feeling the impact right now because of the overload and the streets not being opened and the parking issues downtown not being resolved. We feel that a lot of our local businesses do thrive on tourism, and we welcome tourism, but there has to be a compromise somehow. I'm not sure what that compromise is, but we are really feeling the brunt of this burden right now at the south end of the island, and we urge you to look into opening that parking lot and the state beach at the end of the island. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll close it. I just feel compelled to say a few things on the record to correct many of the things that were misstated. First and foremost, I've certainly been one for democracy, and democracy prevails. So that's an incorrect statement. Second, I have certainly tried to do what I can to issue and try to address the issues in Boca Grande for the last 3 years as a commissioner. Have met with people, spoke with both Mr. Hanna and Mr. Cross, who wrote letters to our commission a couple of years ago indicating they wanted no changes whatsoever to parking and really didn't want to have a discussion. Both are in writing. Additionally, there was a mention of a parking panel. Parking panel was never adopted by Lee County commissioners. It never operated in the sunshine. The few times I went there, there were public members. Mr. Sullivan was there, was told to leave. He was not able to participate. That's not the way we do things in Lee County. We have an ordinance, we have a committee, we have minutes, we have everything along with that. So yes, was I dissatisfied that this was an ad hoc committee that was appointed by people, and certainly they would talk before meetings, have votes before meetings. I'd walk in the room and the decision was already made. So just for clarification purposes. Another thing that is overlooked, 3 years ago, this commission gave me the ability to work on this issue. It was unanimous. It's been unanimous 3 separate times. It comes back to 2003 when there's a parking variance that was given out and identified 92 different parking areas. And that's when we used to have public parking that had 51 spots, not 97 now. There's over 117 spots. There was no parking available for the Methodist Church. Every church has continued to just take advantage of that variance. It wasn't an ordinance. It wasn't anything associated with that. The issues that I started to work on were traffic, were certainly public safety, and that's why I was doing what I was doing. That's what it was for. So what I find disturbing is the number of comments. To Mr. Witt's comment, the reason we didn't have a public meeting today is for people here. It's a discussion that we have with all 5 commissioners. So as the person that puts the agenda together, knowing that we did not have 5 commissioners, I didn't think it would be a worthwhile conversation unless all 5 members participated. I'm trying to be as transparent as I possibly can in this endeavor and trying to do this. But to say that I've not been open or transparent, there was a public records request for my emails from 24 to 25. I would encourage anyone to ask for a public records request from 22 to 25, and you can see the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails I've received. So it's not 3 people, 4 people. I certainly have heard loudly and clearly. I certainly understand the points of view from the 4 speakers. They were the same 4 speakers that were up last meeting. All said they were praying for my brother. I wasn't here because my brother, unfortunately, is in the process of dying with brain cancer. That's why I was not here, and that's why I was unable to speak. But people say they're praying for my brother. That's great. If you have some compassion, this is an issue that you brought to us. It's not on the agenda. We will certainly publicize the agenda. But the facts that have been presented today are rhetoric, and they're not facts at all. And I certainly have no problem backing up anything that I've said on the record. My logs indicate when I've been there, the meetings, everything on. I have no problem with any type of governing situation, but I felt compelled and I wasn't going to speak about this at all. There's just too many misrepresentations on the record, and I wanted to straighten them out. Thank you. Any other public comments? We do have a public workshop this afternoon at 1:30, and if there's no other meeting before us, I'll call for the meeting to be adjourned. Thank you all.